Welcome back, everybody, to the HeatWave Podcast, part of the Roundtable Sports Network. We're doing things very differently this time. I am not with AP, but instead, I'm with the Roundtable Sports Orlando Magic beat writer and the host of Full Court Magic, Don Strouble. Don, how we doing, man?
Doing well, man. How are you?
We're just kind of grateful the season's finally over. 82 games. It is done
Yeah,
after we both been through our ups and downs this whole year, especially you. You were at games. You covered the Magic very, very closely. I want to give you your flowers on that, man. You did a great job showing your presence out there.
thank you,
So
man.
just congrats on the amazing job throughout the regular season, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Same to you, man. You're a grinder because not only do you have the heat, you got UM too. So props to you for always working day in day out.
Hey man, I love UM a lot. I can't say the same for the Heat right now, but but coming into this season, Don, the Magic had a lot more expectations than the Heat. Obviously, you have Paolo and Franz, but you also acquired Desmond Bain in that blockbuster trade where you gave up I think it was I'm pretty sure it was 4 first rounders. Of
Mhm.
course, uh, free agency wasn't as we hoped that it would be when you guys did sign. What was him again? Uh, I'm
But
so
Tyus
lost.
Jones,
Tyus Jones, thank you.
yeah.
That was a very disappointing signing, even though it was just a 1 year deal.
Hmm.
And you guys finished with a 45-37 record, eighth in the Eastern Conference. You'll play the Philadelphia 76ers in the play-in tournament. Too bad we couldn't have AP on today for this
Yeah,
one.
right.
But regardless, this is the situation we find the Magic in. Obviously, injuries played a role in it. Franz missed a ton of games. I remember that. I
Hmm.
remember he rushed back to play the game in Germany. Of course, that was a very sentimental moment for him. But when you just look back at this whole season, just what led to such an underwhelming season?
Yeah, I think, it's a combination of different things. Obviously, this team did not come close to meeting the preseason expectations that were set on them, especially when so much was mortgaged for Bain. But I feel like Bain, in a lot of ways, lived up to that. I mean, you got a full 82 out of him, first time in his career, averaged 20.1 points per game, shot almost 40% from three, but the team did not collectively come together, whether mainly because of injuries, just could never develop that consistent chemistry. I also believe that Coach Mosley has hit his ceiling. There were multiple points throughout the year, especially in the latter half here, where players could be seen, supposedly or seemingly tuning him out. And just he talked with us after the game against Atlanta before the last winning streak the team went on when they got beat by 29 at home. And he told us the hardest thing to coach is effort and just seemed very frustrated. I know the fan base is frustrated with him. They've been calling for his job for most of the year. And yesterday was the most egregious example, losing to essentially a G League roster Celtics team that was resting all of its players, all of its key players, uh, and could not find a way to get it done. And a lot of that was coaching mismanagement in terms of how he was trying to stagger the minutes of his key guys. When I talked about it yesterday and before on the podcast, like the Magic don't have that luxury. They're not in a position where they get to take breaks. There was no reason that Bain should have only played 17 minutes and taken 8 shots. So without rambling here, I think it's a mix of injuries, some coaching malpractice, a lack of leadership a lot of times from your star or face of the franchise and Paolo Banchero. The Franz Wagner injury especially really hurt them. I mean, he missed the better part of 4 months with that ankle. And just a culmination of those things coming together to create the perfect storm. And now this team has just 2 chances left to try and get into the postseason.
I did want to talk about Paulo. He's a player that I was very high on this year before the
Hmm.
season because I'm also on a different show, Section 305, with my buddies Nick Dupont and Raul Pagan. I had the Magic, I'm pretty sure, either third or second in the East. to finish, and I had them going to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's how much
Mhm.
I believed in this team because, of course, you get Desmond Bain, who he's more available. He's a player that fits your system. He's not a player that you have to tear apart most of your core. You kept most of your core, and you add a firepower like him because you were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league, and then this happens. It wasn't enough. So with Paolo, when I watched the games with the Magic, the ones that I was able to catch up on, there were times where I felt like Paolo's effort, and we talked about it, the effort, where it just seemed like it wasn't there because one of the aspects of him that got him drafted first overall was his motor, and it just didn't seem like it was there for a majority of the season. Given your close-up coverage, do you think that there may be some questions on his motor, or at least maybe he was tuned out throughout the year?
I think it's twofold. I think that whatever happened with that groin injury that caused him to miss 10 games earlier in the year. Now, mind you, those are the only 10 games he missed. He gave him 72 games.
Mhm,
So like he was very available. I don't know exactly what happened. I just feel like Paolo was playing with a level of like indecision
mhm,
that I had not seen from him before. And obviously, this was my first full season in the building, but going back to 2024, like coming back from the oblique, he turned up his motor. He went into postseason form early, and then when he got to the playoffs, was just playing like a different beast. I think he was sixth in scoring average in the playoffs, despite the Magic only lasting 5 games last year in the postseason.
mhm,
And so it's like he clearly wasn't the same player. And when you look at his numbers, 22.2 points per game, that is almost a 4 point drop off in his point total average. Field goal percentage did go up. 0.7%, but 3 point shooting, worst since his rookie year, 30.5%. Uh, he had 5.2 assists, and it felt like at times he was facilitating better, but a lot of turnovers, even last night in that loss, a triple double, but turned the ball over 6 times. And so I feel like with Paolo, he just wasn't as explosive. Like when you look at those old highlights, there are flashes and shades of LeBron in there. Like he had that archetype of athleticism that LeBron has. And it seemed like now it was just dribble into a crowd, take a oddly uh, contested shot or just have poor shot selection or kick it out. Um, and there were like 50-50 balls he wouldn't get after. Like there was just times with Paolo where there were just glaring issues. And it's been interesting watching the fandom on Twitter go back and forth because one of my colleagues of mine, an article he didn't even write, but it went up on his website, got absolutely dragged for Paulo slander. Now the article was a little overboard, I can admit, but again, it wasn't written by him. But his point was when he had to defend himself was that it's a leadership thing. And
mhm,
now those same people that came with the pitchforks notice this with Paulo and are, chastising him for being a max player in the face of the franchise, but not acting like it, not showing it. So
mhm,
it's one of those things where it just was an incredibly underwhelming season, and you need your franchise player to be better than this.
mhm. Now looking forward, you guys will play Philadelphia on Wednesday at Philadelphia because that loss to Boston did give up home court advantage in the play-in tournament. It's very likely. I'm sure maybe it's not official yet, but I'm pretty sure it's very likely that Joel Embiid will not be playing in this game. He's had his bad luck of injuries. I've talked about it with AP multiple times. I never believed in Joel Embiid as your franchise guy. So that's another discussion
Mhm.
for another time. But of course, you still have Tyrese Maxey. VJ Edgecombe was a really good rookie this year, and you got other veterans like Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre, Paul George. Of course, he can go off on a given night, despite what people might think of him as a Philadelphia 76er. But when you look at this matchup, obviously the Magic have the advantage in terms of size. Of course,
Mhm.
you have a massive front court with Franz, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr. Now, what are maybe some keys that you think that you have that need to happen for the Magic to get this win and not have to go through a second and win and go home situation?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to do a ton of scouting on the Sixers side. Obviously, Embiid just had that appendectomy, and so without him, this team still has plenty of firepower.
Mhm.
It really comes down to, can you limit Paul and Tyrese? And if you can do that, then you put yourself in a good position. And this whole defensive identity that the Magic have been predicated on in their process, I've wondered what that even means at times, given how, back and forth this team plays. But they're going to have to lean into that defensive identity and that tenacity that carried them through the play in last year and got them into a playoff series. This is not going to be easy on the road. I mean, Philly's going to be loud, it's going to be a hostile environment, and they squandered the opportunity to host this game. But the good news for the Magic is all they have to do is win, and then they're in a playoff series. But
Mhm.
it's going to come down to Paolo Banchero playing like a number one option, defending well, taking George and Maxi and making things really hard on them. Because even if one of those guys goes and gets theirs, okay, one player cannot win a game for a team. Can you limit everything else? Are you going to be disciplined? Are you going to limit the turnovers? The Magic are at their best when they are facilitating on the offensive end, at least from that perspective, and not turning the ball over, because when they allow teams to get out and run off of turnovers, then they're in trouble. And so it just cannot let that happen. And there has to be some semblance of decent offensive actions instead of a bunch of ISO ball by that guy that you have up on the screen right now, or Paolo or Franz. It's just not going to work. And so there can't be any hero ball, there can't be turnovers, and whatever defensive identity you've been trying to tap into all year, now's the time to do it, because this is one of your final two chances to get into the postseason.
I love all your points. I would just like to add that Kelly Oubre Jr. is known to go off on a given night. As
Yes.
a Heat writer, he's gone off against us on a number of occasions. So if that three ball starts to fall, it puts the Magic, as it would anybody, in a tough position. So that's another thing to keep an eye on, because Kelly does have a way of just stepping up in those moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, proven veteran, a 3-and-D guy, and yeah, they could cause some problems really quick. And
Mhm.
Nick Nurse is a championship winning coach. Jamal Mosley is not. So there's going to be a coaching mismatch there, despite both of these teams having an underwhelming year by what the standard should have been. And it's
Mhm.
not going to be easy for the Magic. And I'm telling you, they do not want to come home, because we'll get to this. But if Charlotte beats the Heat, the Magic have not had any luck against the Charlotte Hornets this season. So they better hope they win this game, because I can make an argument that a potential matchup with the Hornets would be even more dangerous for this Magic team than facing Philly on the road.
Oh man, you had to go there. You had to go there. Listen, I'm someone who's been high on the Hornets for a long time. I've bought their stocks since I really started getting into NBA journalism, because I just believed in the talent that they're collecting. But now it is finally showing. But before we get to the Hornets, the Miami Heat finished the regular season with a 43-39 record, 10th in the Eastern Conference. They don't, honest to God, they don't deserve to be here, but here we are. And granted, the Heat have some good luck in the play-in. I mean, they're the playing champs. I mean, as Heat fans call it. But can they repeat history? This is what terrifies me about the Hornets, and they're finally showing it, because LaMelo Ball has been healthy for most of the year. The ankle issues have not been a problem this year, and he's been going off. He has a case to be an All NBA player, so there's that. Brandon Miller is finding his own. Con Knipple just made history as leading the league in threes as a rookie. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'll admit I had VJ before the year as rookie of the year, but Con has a strong case against Cooper. And then everyone else just has a way of falling into the role. Miles Bridges, Musa Diabate, Sion James, like Ryan Kalkbrenner. This guy, I mean, Charles Lee has a bunch of rookies playing impactful minutes. Liam McNeely was not really a factor, but he's still developing, I believe, in his talent as well. To me, the Hornets were one of the winners in that draft. So I do not like the Heat's chances because they always find a way of just being complacent with their opponents. And next thing you know, they're up by 13. Next thing you know, they're down by 5. And it's been a common theme for them, especially at this point in the year. Also, I don't know or confident to say what version of power we're going to get because when shots are not falling, things don't go well for him. He's not a good defensive player, so he can't make up for it in that regard. And at times he seems to want to play hero ball, as you just mentioned, Don. He's very known to play hero ball at times, and also when you mix in Tyler Hero, you wonder, okay, who's going to initiate the offense? Because I spoke to Spo before about the combination. He's confident in what it brings offensively, and of course, that's all you can talk about. But it's about, okay, who gets the touches, who's in what role, and now Powell's coming off the bench, so that makes me question what's going to happen in free agency. So I don't like the Heat's chances in this matchup, regardless of if you start Bam and Khalil together. I mean, the Hornets have so much firepower, and then we got to mention Kobe White trade deadline.
That was a big acquisition.
One of the steals, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the Bulls didn't even get a pick for him, or at least a first rounder.
Was it? Yeah. I think it was like Colin Sexton and something else. Like I can't.
It was a lot of other stuff, but there was no first round pick given up, which is something that has really been confusing with the Bulls because they had a bunch of talent they traded away and not a single first rounder acquired. That is bad business, horrible business. So when it comes to the Heat, man, like you can give me some insight on what you think, but I'm not too confident because the Hornets are way younger. They run up and down the court a lot better than the Heat. I mean, maybe it won't show on the stats, but they get up and down the court, and they have all the momentum since flipping the calendar year to 2026.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because the Heat the last few years have always had this fighter's chance, especially before Jimmy got traded and the dramatic saga that ended his tenure there. It was always like this was the team that could finish in 8th and then go to the finals. Like they were the Pacers before the Pacers last year in terms of just like catching lightning in a bottle, but it wasn't even that because they did it so many times. It feels like when I look at Norman's numbers, 21.7 points per game, that is just a hair less than his career high mark for his when he was with the Clippers the season before, but it doesn't feel like the impact has been there, namely because of the injuries. I mean, played 58 games, and just in a situation where, like you said, if the shot's not falling, he doesn't have the size to defend or the tenacity to defend. And so, and then you look at Bam and Tyler and Bam said recently, he's like, I'm tired of being in the play-in. We're better than the play-in. So I guess my question to you then, Anthony, is the Heat culture as we know it reached its endpoint? Is it time for new voices and new management besides Spoelstra and Pat Riley? Is their shining star burnt out that they carried, and everything that has made them legendary in this league, has it passed them by?
I've always believed Pat should take a back seat. In today's NBA, he's not really the voice anymore. It's somebody else. It's Nick Erison, Mickey's son.
Yep.
And here's my thing. And yes, I was a big Jimmy fan, but taking my fandom away, Jimmy saved the Heat from so many mediocre years. Because as you mentioned, the Heat can finish in 8th, but then playoff Jimmy rises, and next thing you know, you're in the finals. And even though he gets injured in the playoffs, I mean, especially in the New York series when he twisted his ankle, he still manages to make an impact. His presence alone will really collapse the defense. He has that gravitational pull in the playoffs. And I've mentioned this before on the show, on the HeatWave show by myself in my recent episode. I mentioned how, okay, I know Bam can win you games, but he has
Hmm.
yet to prove that he can win you a series. Because
Sure.
granted, he's never had the chance, but he's never done it either way. Even though Jimmy always made sure his teammates had some like they ate. They had some.
Yeah.
He never hogged anything. Jimmy was is the most unselfish superstar in the league. And then
Hmm.
with Tyler, oh my gosh, Tyler, brother, Tyler, unavailable in the playoffs each and every year. He has not made an impact in the playoffs since the bubble. And not to take anything away from it, but it was a non-playoff environment. So I have yet to see what does Tyler really bring you in the playoffs at an all-star level. He hasn't shown it.
Yeah.
And so it's just I think you do need new voices. I I mentioned this in the last show. I'm not too sure about Spoelstra when it comes to developing right now because
Hmm.
of what's happening with COLLAB. Where I just question what's going on in that situation. He's given some insight on it, but not too much, of course. Um, but yeah, I'm not calling for Spo's job, but
Hmm.
I think next season should be a microscope, not a hot seat. But you should evaluate. Okay, can we truly sustain this Spoelstra era, the Spoelstra way of coaching? Because granted, it worked before, but now when you're without an actual 1A superstar in Jimmy, because to me, Bam hasn't shown that yet, or Tyler at all. So I really do wonder. Okay, can we keep this up? And part of me does say no because because you're not good enough to compete and you're not good enough to get a high draft pick. So when you mix in those things, it's putting this organization in a bad spot for the future, especially now with Nikola Jovic under contract for 4 more years, and that didn't pan out so well this season.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I wonder, I forget who I was listening to. This was well over a year ago, but someone I was listening to said that Bam is not made to be a number one option. That's not his game. Like
Mhm.
he is a complementary player. And so is it fair it to and this isn't me saying like calling you out, just in general, is it fair for that expectation to be placed upon him? And you know, it's weird, man. Like the Heat, I always felt like it was in a market that they could have whoever, but they've been operating like a small market franchise over the
Mhm.
past couple years. And whether that is like the uh the aftermath of the trauma of the Jimmy situation, and they just wanted to, you know, focus on Tyler and Bam and see how far that duo could carry them while adding a Norman Powell. But this feels like a team that needs to get back to its roots and be aggressive in free agency, to really bring someone in. Like I just recount all the names they've missed out on when you look at like a KD or like any of these other guys throughout the years that they could have had but didn't. And now it's like, oh yeah, the Miami Heat, like, I mean, what have they been? You know, especially recently. And to your point, you're not good enough to compete meaningfully, but you're also not good enough or bad enough to fall into that draft lottery territory where you can maybe get a, you know, a franchise altering star for the future. So you're stuck in purgatory. Like, what do
Yeah,
you do? Like, you know?
I've I've mentioned this that I think depending on how this ends, especially if the Heat manage to lose to Charlotte, which I think is a legitimate possibility.
Mhm.
I think that needs to be really talked about is the fact that the Heat could lose to the Hornets and this all ends. And what I mean by
Mhm.
all of it, I think Bam might request a trade
Yeah.
because he's 28 years old. He's in the peak of his career. I mean, damn it, he just scored 83. So regardless of the ethics of it, he's still like you mentioned, he is a complementary player. He can
Mhm.
fit in any system, and if you just give him his shots, he's gonna make them count. So
Yeah.
I do wonder, okay, how much tolerance does Bam have left? Because you're now in year 2 in terms of no Jimmy, or at least a year and a half because of the
Mm,
deadline. And we're seeing a lot of this not be where they want to be. Four straight play in, obviously not a great sign.
mm-mm.
So I would be very concerned if I'm the Heat. Okay, if I lose to Charlotte, and even if Charlotte especially makes the playoffs, then there's got to be some conversations about, okay, is Bam gonna be happy staying in Miami for another 3 years, because he's on a contract for 3 more years.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, is he going to tolerate any more of this falling short of superstars? You fell short of KD twice. You fell short of Dame. You fell short of Kyrie, James
Mhm.
Harden, Bradley Beal, which I know is crazy, but that was still a thing.
Hey,
You
back
fall,
then, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
And here's the thing: we all know, as a league, as journalists, we know that people want to play with Bam. Bam is a very likable character in the league. I
Mhm.
mean, everyone raves about him in the Olympics.
Mhm.
But if that doesn't get you enough to draw him into Miami, which players like, by the way, I mean, no income tax here in Florida, so
Yeah.
that's a plus for all of these contracts.
Mhm.
Um, I'd be very concerned. I think this is a do or die moment, regardless. Like, even though it is win or go home, but I think this is do or die for your franchise moving forward. Because if Bam is out, Tyler is certainly out. And then you look at who you have left, no one is really good enough to build around. So
Yeah.
this is a critical moment for the Heat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting domino effect that could take place. And it's like, yeah, that same magic isn't there. Like that this team had the same fire and juice where it's like no matter where they finished in the standings, as long as they had a shot at the postseason, you could potentially count on a deep playoff run because playoff Jimmy was a different animal. Obviously
Very different.
that part of his career has passed him, and you know the ending came as it did, as unfortunate as it was. But I just
Yeah.
yeah, I wonder at what point some serious change needs to come for this team because the worst thing that you can do is be complacent, and that's something that I have chastised the Magic's front office for doing, and that's what made the Bane trade so surprising because it's like, wow, Jeff Weltman's finally taking a swing. Are
Mhm.
Arison and Riley willing to and I don't want to make accusations here, but like, are they willing to give up any pride they might be harboring and give up any short sightedness to understand what needs to be done for the long term future of the Miami Heat?
That is a really good question. And what has me thinking no is the simple fact that we've been, and this got me messed up throughout the whole year. We go back to Giannis
Oh, yeah.
almost every other year. And
Hmm.
granted, it honestly felt like this could have been the deadline that it happened, but nothing transpired. And that also is a mix of, okay, the Bucks were not actually looking to trade him; they just were hearing conversations probably. And I know he's a buddy of Shandell, but this is what pisses me off about Shams is he keeps bringing it up, and next thing you know, we're back on the saga, and we're back on the writing articles about potential trade packages, what might be interested in here and there. Uh, but that's what has me like a bit worried about any potential deals down the line, because the Heat obviously don't want to take any long-term deals that would put them in harm's way of getting a guy like Giannis.
Sure.
And so I'm honestly I'm lost. I'm lost on the vision. They just fired Doc Rivers, which they should have done 2 years ago, honestly. Uh, but I don't know. I mean, maybe this is the off season. The off season it happens because honestly, the Bucks didn't even make the play in. They're in the best situation. They're in the worst situation than both of us. So I would imagine that, okay, this is maybe the time where things spark conversations. But if this offseason you don't get Giannis, or you don't get someone who can actually change this franchise, then then you gotta let it go. And I feel like that's the hard part because they're very stubborn. Pat is not someone who is known to rebuild. He's not known as someone who just tanks. So it puts me in a bit of a predicament where it's like, they're putting themselves in this situation, and next thing you know, we're in for another mediocre season.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. They've been residents of the rumor mill for way too long, just coming up short on these big time names. And, I would think after what happened in last year's postseason, I thought that the Heat would come out with a fire. Like they seemed so disappointed in themselves after being swept by Cleveland and finishing below 500. Like it felt like a team that had a bounce back, and it's just there's been hardly a pulse. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where, like, what do you have to go off of? What do you have to show for your past failures? And it's looking like an exit potentially even worse than last year.
Yeah, because if the Heat make the playoffs, I mean, you're facing Detroit, and that is not a really good matchup for them. I mean, Jalen
Mhm.
Duren is another potential All NBA player, and it feels like a repeat of what happened with the Cavaliers. You're bound to get blowout
Mhm.
again. So I'm not too excited about it with this play-in. I mean, even the matchup itself already leaves me like devastated because it's at Charlotte. They're going to be in front of their home crowd. This is the closest Charlotte's been to a playoff environment since 2016 when the Heat put them
Yeah.
out in the first round with Purple Guy in the stands.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different team now. The organization's different. I mean,
Yeah.
I've credited the Hornets' organization as a whole and how they really restructured everything and getting all their draft picks and staying competitive. So with the Heat, it just feels like they're falling behind of the new methods because we see what the Hornets did. We're seeing what Sam Presti did in terms
Mhm.
of, okay, yeah, bad years, but you harbor so many draft picks. You have so much talent, and then you have assets to get more talent.
Yeah.
Because if we think about it, OKC can get Giannis easily. They can get him easily. So it feels like the Heat are just falling behind of all of this
Mhm.
and not getting their money's worth.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, Charlotte, especially the way Charlotte started the year, it looked like in the early going might be headed towards another rebuild year, but then they just
Yeah.
turned it up. I mean, Con Knipple is going to be, a candidate for rookie of the year. I mean, we all know it's most likely going to Cooper, but Con will be in that conversation.
Oh yeah, he'll
And
he'll he'll make it interesting.
yeah, yeah, make an interesting case for sure. But yeah, it's just weird, I mean, this is not the Miami Heat that I've known and grown up with, and I think really the main point here is that the NBA in Florida is not in a good place. It's
No, it
just
is not.
like it is very mediocre across the two franchises to say the least. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
oh man, this is gonna be a very painful thing to watch. The Heat will play with the Hornets on Tuesday. The Magic will play Philadelphia on Wednesday. But this just feels like a trap for either team. But I think more so on the Heat side. I would
Mhm.
give the Magic a better fighting chance because you're not facing Embiid because that would change your defense a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And so I think you'll have opportunities to really try to get the ball out of Maxi's hands, try to make
Mhm.
the other guys beat you. But again, if the other guys beat you, at least you have another chance. Meanwhile, the Heat are in a do or die situation. So
Yeah.
this is a very interesting time. Again, like you
Yeah.
said, for the NBA in Florida.
Yep.
We will see what happens in the off season. Of course, you and I will be keeping tabs on everything.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that's gonna be all we have for today's episode of the HeatWave Podcast. Make sure to check out the Orlando Magic Roundtable because Don and Andrew put on amazing coverage for that team. Meanwhile,
Thank you.
you can catch my stuff as well on the Miami Heat Roundtable. But thank you all for watching. We'll see what happens in the play-in, and if the Heat and Magic manage to meet up each other, then that'll be even more interesting to see. But we'll get there when we get there. But thank you, Don, for everything, for just the time,
Yeah, man.
and yeah, we'll see you next time.